The three men in matching blue polo shirts walked across my lawn like they owned the place. The biggest one, a guy named Derek who called himself the HOA enforcement officer, was already pointing at my old red tractor sitting in the driveway. "Mr. Patterson," Derek said with a smirk on his face, "we've given you 3 warnings. That tractor is an eyesore and violates Section 14, Paragraph 3 of the Community Guidelines. We're here to remove it from the premises." I stood on my porch, 82 years old, watching these 3 men approach my tractor with a tow truck backing up behind them. My tractor, the one my father gave me before he passed away, the one I'd driven across 3 states when I moved here 20 years ago. "You're not taking my tractor," I said, my voice calm and steady. Derek laughed, actually laughed. "Sir, you don't have a choice. The HOA board voted unanimously. This tractor is community property now until you pay the fines. $5,000 in violations." The tow truck driver was already hooking chains to my tractor. My heart was beating fast, but not from fear, from something else. Something these men didn't understand yet. "I'm asking you one more time," I said, walking down my porch steps slowly. "Please unhook those chains from my tractor." "Or what?" Derek stepped closer to me, using his height to try to intimidate an old man. "What are you gonna do about it, old-timer? Call the real cops? We have legal authority here. We are the cops of this neighborhood." I reached into my back pocket. Derek's 2 buddies stepped forward, like they thought I might pull out a weapon or something. Maybe they were hoping I would, so they could have an excuse to do something worse. But what I pulled out wasn't a weapon. It was a leather case, worn and faded from decades of use. I flipped it open. The gold badge caught the morning sunlight. The letters FBI gleamed bright and clear. Below it, my credentials showed my name, my photo from 30 years ago, and 3 words that changed everything. Special Agent, Retired. Derek's face went white as a sheet of paper. His 2 buddies stopped moving completely, like someone had pressed pause on a video. The tow truck driver looked up from the chains, saw the badge in my hand, and his jaw dropped open. "My name is Harold Patterson," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I spent 41 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've put away drug lords, crime bosses, and corrupt politicians who thought they were above the law. I've testified in front of Congress. I've received commendations from 4 different presidents." I took 1 step closer to Derek. "And you think you're going to take my father's tractor? But what happened next?" Well, that's where this story really gets interesting, because Derek didn't back down like a smart person would. No. He did something so foolish, so unbelievably stupid, that it set off a chain of events nobody in this quiet little neighborhood could have ever predicted. Before I tell you what he did, let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you how I ended up here, in Maple Ridge Estates, living next to the worst HOA in the entire state of Florida. And let me tell you about the people in this neighborhood who made my life both wonderful and terrible at the same time. But first, I want to know where you're watching from today. Drop your city and state in the comments below. And if you want to hear what happens next, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the chapters. Trust me, this story only gets crazier from here. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. 20 years ago, I retired from the FBI after 4 decades of service. I'd seen things that would give most people nightmares for the rest of their lives. I'd worked cases that kept me away from my family for months at a time. I'd missed birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays because I was chasing down dangerous criminals who threatened innocent people. My wife, Margaret, God rest her soul, she understood. She always understood. She raised our 2 children, mostly by herself, while I was out saving the world, as she liked to joke. When I finally retired at 62 years old, she looked at me with those beautiful green eyes and said, "Harry, I want sunshine. I want palm trees. I want to spend whatever time we have left somewhere warm and peaceful." So we sold our home in Virginia and moved to Florida. Maple Ridge Estates was a brand new community back then. The houses were freshly built, the lawns were perfectly green, and the HOA was just a small group of neighbors who wanted to keep the place looking nice. Margaret fell in love with the place immediately. Our house sat on a corner lot with a big backyard where she could plant her garden. There was a community pool, just a 5-minute walk away. The neighbors were friendly and kind. It felt like paradise. I brought my tractor with me, of course. It was a 1952 Ford 8N, painted red by my father's own hands when I was just a little boy. My father had been a farmer in Kansas, working the land from sunrise to sunset every single day. That tractor had helped feed our family. It had taught me the value of hard work. When my father passed away, he left me that tractor with a simple note that said, "Take care of her, son." She took care of us. I couldn't just leave it behind. For the first 10 years in Maple Ridge Estates, nobody cared about my tractor. I kept it in the driveway, covered with a nice tarp, when I wasn't using it. Sometimes I'd take it out on weekends to help neighbors who needed heavy things moved or yards that needed tilling. The kids in the neighborhood loved it. They called me Tractor Harry and would wave excitedly whenever they saw me driving it down the street. Those were good years, happy years. Margaret and I would sit on our porch every evening, watching the sun go down, holding hands like we were teenagers again. She'd tell me stories about her day, about the flowers she planted, about the nice conversation she had with Mrs. Rodriguez next door. I'd listen and smile, grateful for every peaceful moment after a lifetime of chaos. Then Margaret got sick. It started with small things. She'd forget where she put her keys. She'd call our son by our daughter's name. She'd ask me the same question 3 times in 1 hour. The doctors said it was Alzheimer's disease. They said it would only get worse. They said to prepare myself. For 5 years, I watched the love of my life slowly fade away. I took care of her every single day. I cooked her meals, helped her get dressed, held her hand when she was scared and confused. Some days she didn't recognize me at all. She'd look at me with frightened eyes and ask who I was and what I was doing in her house. Those were the hardest days of my entire life. Harder than any FBI case. Harder than any dangerous criminal I'd ever faced. Margaret passed away peacefully in her sleep 3 years ago. She was 79 years old. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. After she was gone, I thought about selling the house and moving somewhere else. Everywhere I looked, I saw memories of her. The kitchen, where she made her famous apple pie. The garden where she grew tomatoes and roses. The bedroom where we spent 40 years of marriage together. But I couldn't leave. This was our home. Her spirit was still here. I could feel it. And besides, I still had my tractor. I still had my purpose. I started helping people around the neighborhood even more. Old Mrs. Chen had a tree fall in her yard after a storm. I used my tractor to clear it away. The Martinez family needed help moving a heavy shed to their backyard. I was there with my tractor before they even finished asking. Young Tommy Wilson wanted to learn about engines and machines. I spent weekends teaching him everything I knew. I became the unofficial helper of Maple Ridge Estates. People knew that if they needed something, they could count on old Harry Patterson and his red tractor. But while I was busy helping people, something else was happening in our neighborhood. Something that would change everything. The HOA was changing. See, the original HOA members were good people. They just wanted to make sure everyone kept their lawns mowed and didn't paint their houses crazy colors. Simple stuff. Reasonable stuff. But over the years, new people moved in. People who had different ideas about what a neighborhood should look like. People who thought they knew better than everyone else. People who wanted power and control. The biggest change came when a man named Victor Davenport moved into the largest house in the neighborhood. He was a retired corporate lawyer with more money than sense and an ego bigger than the state of Texas. Within 6 months of moving in, he had gotten himself elected as president of the HOA board. That's when the trouble really started. Victor had a vision for Maple Ridge Estates. He wanted it to look like one of those fancy magazine neighborhoods where everything is perfect and identical. Every house the same color. Every lawn exactly the same height. Every mailbox in the exact same spot. No personality. No character. No individuality. And definitely no old red tractors sitting in driveways. The new rules came fast and furious. You couldn't have more than 3 flowers in a window box. You couldn't park your car on the street after 7 in the evening. You couldn't put up holiday decorations before a specific date, or leave them up after another specific date. You couldn't have a garden gnome in your yard. You couldn't have a basketball hoop in your driveway. The fines came even faster. Miss a rule. Pay $100. Do it again. Pay $200. 3 times. And you were in what Victor called serious violation status. People were scared to do anything. Neighbors who used to wave and chat would hurry inside as soon as they got home, worried that something they did would attract the attention of the HOA patrol. Yes, the HOA patrol. Victor created it himself. He hired 3 men to drive around the neighborhood in a golf cart, looking for violations. Derek was the leader. He was a former security guard who had been fired from his job at a mall for being too aggressive. The other 2 were his friends from the gym, guys who liked to flex their muscles and intimidate people. They called themselves the HOA enforcement team. The rest of us called them something else entirely, but I won't repeat it here since children might be listening. For a while, they left me alone. I think Victor knew who I was, what I had done with my life. And he didn't want to mess with a retired FBI agent. But as time went on and his power grew, he got bolder, more confident, more convinced that no one could touch him. The first warning came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 3 months ago. Derek knocked on my door with a smug smile on his face. "Mr. Patterson," he said, handing me a piece of paper. "Your tractor is a violation of community guidelines. You have 30 days to remove it or face fines." I looked at the paper. It said my tractor was an unsightly farm equipment that damaged the aesthetic value of the neighborhood. "I've had this tractor here for 20 years, I said calmly. "Nobody ever complained?" Derek shrugged. "New rules, old-timer, new leadership. Times change. You either get with the program, or you pay the price." I didn't move my tractor. 30 days later, the first fine arrived. $500. I didn't pay it. Another month passed. Another fine. $1,000 this time. I still didn't pay it. Victor Davenport himself came to my door. He was a tall man with silver hair and cold blue eyes. He wore expensive suits even when he was just walking around the neighborhood. "Mr. Patterson," he said, his voice smooth as oil. "I understand you're having trouble accepting the new community standards. I want you to know that we're willing to work with you, pay the fines, move the tractor, and we can all move forward as good neighbors." "That tractor belonged to my father," I replied. "It's been in my family for over 70 years. It's not going anywhere." Victor's smile faded. "Everyone follows the rules, Mr. Patterson. Even retired government employees. No one is above the HOA. "Funny," I said. "I spent my career putting away people who thought they were above the law. They all learned differently in the end." Victor's eyes narrowed. "You have 1 month. After that, we'll be forced to take action." He walked away without another word. That was 4 weeks ago, and now here I am, standing in my driveway, my FBI badge in my hand, watching Derek's face turn whiter than I've ever seen a face turn before. But the story doesn't end there. Because right at that moment, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. The doors opened, and 4 men in dark suits stepped out. And they weren't here for Derek, they were here for me. The 4 men in dark suits walked toward my driveway with serious faces. Derek and his buddies actually looked relieved, like they thought these men were coming to help them. They were wrong. The lead agent was a tall woman, with short brown hair and sharp eyes. I recognized her immediately. Special Agent Diana Torres. I had trained her myself 25 years ago when she was just a rookie fresh out of Quantico. "Agent Patterson," she said, using my old title out of respect. "It's been a long time." Derek's mouth fell open. "Wait, you know this guy?" Diana didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on mine. "Sir, we need to talk. It's urgent." I nodded slowly. "Come inside, Diana. We can talk in the kitchen." "Hold on just a minute," Derek said, stepping forward with his chest puffed out like a rooster. "We're in the middle of official HOA business here. This tractor is being seized according to community bylaws, and nobody is going anywhere until we finish what we started." Now Diana turned to look at him. Just looked. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. 25 years in, the FBI teaches you how to make a person feel very small with just your eyes. Derek's confidence melted like ice cream on a hot Florida sidewalk. "Sir," Diana said to Derek, her voice cold as steel. "Do you understand that interfering with federal agents in the performance of their duties is a crime? Do you understand that I could have you in handcuffs in the back of that SUV in about 30 seconds? Derek took a step backward, then another. His 2 buddies were already walking toward their golf cart, suddenly very interested in being somewhere else. We'll come back another time," Derek mumbled. "This isn't over. Patterson." He practically ran to the golf cart. The tow truck driver unhooked the chains from my tractor so fast he almost tripped over his own feet. Within 2 minutes, they were all gone, leaving tire marks on the street as they sped away. I almost smiled. Almost. But then I looked at Diana's face and saw something that worried me. She wasn't here for a friendly visit. Something was wrong. Something serious. "Come inside," I said again. "I'll make some coffee." Diana followed me into the house while her 3 agents waited by the SUV. My kitchen still looked the same as it did when Margaret was alive. Yellow curtains she picked out herself. Flower magnets on the refrigerator. A cross-stitch on the wall that said, "Home is where the heart is," that she made with her own hands. I made coffee the old-fashioned way, in a pot on the stove, while Diana sat at the kitchen table. "You look good, sir," she said. "Retirement suits you." "Don't butter me up, Diana. Just tell me why you're here." She took a deep breath. "Do you remember the Castellano case?" My hand stopped moving. The Castellano case. How could I ever forget? 30 years ago, I led the investigation that brought down the Castellano crime family. They were one of the biggest organized crime operations on the entire East Coast. Drugs, weapons, money laundering, murder. They did it all. The head of the family was a man named Vincent Castellano, a ruthless monster who had ordered the deaths of at least 40 people. It took me 7 years to build the case against him. 7 years of my life. 7 years of missed dinners and empty promises to Margaret. 7 years of danger, of death threats, of looking over my shoulder every single day. But I got him. I got him good. Vincent Castellano was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I testified against him for 3 days straight. When the verdict came in, He looked at me across the courtroom with pure hatred in his eyes. "This isn't over, Patterson," he said as they led him away in chains. "Not by a long shot. I hadn't thought about him in years. I figured he was rotting away in some federal prison, paying for all the terrible things he did." "What about the Castellano case?" I asked Diana, my voice suddenly hoarse. "Vincent Castellano died 6 months ago. Heart attack in his cell." I nodded slowly. "Good riddance." But his son didn't think so. I turned around to face her. "His son? Marco Castellano. He was just a teenager when you put his father away. Now he's 45 years old, and he spent the last 20 years rebuilding everything you destroyed. He's smart, sir. Smarter than his father ever was. We've been tracking him, but we can't get close. He learned from his father's mistakes." Diana pulled out a folder from her jacket and placed it on the table. 3 weeks ago, we intercepted communications that suggest Marco is planning something big, and your name came up multiple times. I opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos, transcripts of phone calls, and a map with several locations circled in red ink. One of those locations was my address. "He knows where I live," I said quietly. "He knows everything about you, sir. Where you live, where you shop, what time you take your morning walk, which neighbors you talk to. He's been watching you for months." I sat down heavily in my chair. 82 years old, retired for 20 years, living alone in a quiet neighborhood. And now a crime boss wanted revenge for something I did 3 decades ago. "What does he want?" I asked. "We're not sure yet. But based on the communications we've seen, he's not planning to kill you." He said, and I quote, "Death is too easy for Patterson. He took my father from me for 30 years. I want him to suffer for 30 years. I thought about that. Marco didn't want me dead. He wanted me to suffer. Which meant he was going to go after the things I loved, the people I cared about, the life I had built." I looked out the window at my tractor sitting in the driveway. "Diana, I need to know something. The HOA troubles I've been having, the new president who moved in, the sudden enforcement of rules that didn't exist before. Is that connected to this?" Diana's face told me everything I needed to know before she even opened her mouth. "Victor Davenport isn't who he claims to be. He's not a retired corporate lawyer. His real name is Victor DeLuca. He's Marco Castellano's cousin." The world seemed to tilt sideways for a moment. Victor wasn't just a power-hungry neighbor. He was a plant, a soldier in Marco's army. Everything that had happened over the past year, all the new rules, all the fines, all the harassment about my tractor, it was all part of a plan to make my life miserable, a plan for revenge. "They're not just trying to take my tractor," I said slowly. "They're trying to take everything." Diana nodded. "We believe the tractor seizure was just the beginning. They wanted to humiliate you, make you feel powerless, break you down piece by piece." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, I could see my neighbors going about their day. Mrs. Chen was watering her flowers. The Martinez kids were riding their bikes down the sidewalk. Tommy Wilson was shooting hoops in his driveway. Good people. Innocent people. People who had no idea that a dangerous criminal had moved into their neighborhood with plans for revenge against an old man. "Diana, I need to ask you something. All these people in this neighborhood, are they in danger?" Diana was quiet for a long moment. "We don't know, sir. Marco is unpredictable. If he thinks hurting your neighbors will hurt you, he might do it." I closed my eyes and thought about Margaret. What would she tell me to do? She always had the right answer, even when I couldn't see it myself. I could almost hear her voice in my head. "Harry, you spent your whole life protecting people. That's who you are. That's who you've always been. Don't stop now just because you're old." She was right. Even in death, she was right. I turned back to Diana. "What do you need from me?" "We want to use you as bait, sir. Draw Marco out. Make him think his plan is working. But I have to be honest with you. It's dangerous. Very dangerous. You're 82 years old, and Marco has resources, men, and weapons. I've faced worse," I said. And it was true. "I know you have. But that was a long time ago." I thought about everything I had been through in my life. All the cases, all the criminals, all the close calls. I thought about Margaret, and how proud she had been of me. I thought about my children and grandchildren and the world I wanted to leave behind for them. Then I thought about my neighbors, the people who waved at me every morning, the kids who called me Tractor Harry, the elderly folks I helped with my old red tractor. They didn't deserve to be caught up in someone else's vendetta. "I'll do it," I said. Diana smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I knew you would say that, sir. You haven't changed a bit. But I have one condition." "Name it." "No one in this neighborhood gets hurt. I don't care what it takes. You put agents on every corner. You watch every house. If Marco even thinks about touching one of my neighbors, I'm out. I'll handle him myself." Diana nodded seriously. "You have my word, sir." These people will be protected. Over the next few days, Diana and her team set up surveillance around Maple Ridge Estates. They did it quietly, secretly. Agents, disguised as utility workers, delivery drivers, and new residents, moving in. Nobody knew they were surrounded by FBI protection. Nobody except me. I went about my daily routine like nothing had changed. I took my morning walks. I worked on my tractor in the driveway. I helped neighbors with their yards. I smiled and waved and acted like the same old Harry Patterson everyone knew. But inside, I was watching, waiting, preparing. Victor Davenport, or whatever his real name was, kept up his act too. He sent me more warning letters about my tractor. He held HOA meetings where he talked about community standards and property values. He even stopped by my house once to offer me what he called a final chance to avoid legal action. I looked him right in the eye and told him I wasn't going anywhere. He smiled that oily smile of his and said, "We'll see about that, Mr. Patterson. We'll see." 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Nothing happened. Diana checked in with me every day, but she was getting frustrated. Marco was being careful, too careful. He knew something was wrong. "Maybe we scared him off when we showed up at your house," Diana said during one of our calls. "No," I said. "A man like Marco doesn't scare that easily. He's waiting for something big." I was right. It happened on a Sunday morning. I was sitting on my porch, drinking my coffee, watching the sun come up over the rooftops. It was peaceful, quiet, beautiful. Then I heard the scream. It came from Mrs. Chen's house, 3 doors down. A loud, terrified scream that cut through the morning silence like a knife. I was on my feet before I even thought about it. My old legs moved faster than they had in years. I ran across my lawn, across my neighbor's lawn, toward Mrs. Chen's house. I saw the black van first, parked in her driveway, engine running, side door open. Then I saw the men, 2 of them, dressed in black, dragging Mrs. Chen toward the van, while she screamed and kicked. They were kidnapping her. Right in front of my eyes, in broad daylight. "Hey!" I shouted at the top of my lungs. "Let her go." The men looked up. One of them laughed. Actually laughed at an 82-year-old man running toward them. But they stopped laughing when I pulled my old service weapon from under my shirt. I hadn't carried a gun in years. But when Diana told me about Marco, I dug it out of my closet and started carrying it again, just in case. "Let her go right now," I said, my voice steady, my hands steadier. The men froze. Mrs. Chen was still screaming, tears running down her face. "You don't know who you're dealing with, old man," one of them said. "Yes, I do. You work for Marco Castellano. And you've made a very big mistake coming to my neighborhood." For a moment, nobody moved. The whole world seemed to hold its breath. Then I heard the sirens. Diana's team, responding to the emergency. They would be here in seconds. The men heard them too. They shoved Mrs. Chen to the ground and jumped into the van. Tires screeched. The van took off down the street, disappearing around the corner before the FBI vehicles even appeared. I rushed to Mrs. Chen and helped her up. She was shaking badly, crying, confused. "Mr. Patterson," she sobbed. "They broke into my house. They tried to take me." "Why would anyone want to take me?" I held her gently. This sweet old woman who had never hurt anyone in her entire life. "You're safe now," I said softly. "I promise. You're safe." But I knew the truth. She wasn't safe. None of us were safe. Marco had just sent me a message. He knew about the FBI. He knew about the trap. And he didn't care. This was just the beginning. Diana arrived moments later with a whole team of agents. They secured the area, took statements from witnesses, and set up a protection detail around Mrs. Chen's house. I sat on my porch, my gun still in my hand, staring at the empty street, where the van had disappeared. Diana sat down next to me. "Sir?" "No," I said honestly. "I'm not okay. This is my fault. I should have moved away years ago. I should have disappeared where no one could find me. Now these people, these innocent people, they're in danger because of me." Diana put her hand on my shoulder. "This is not your fault. This is Marco Castellano's fault. He's the criminal here, not you. But I'm the reason he came here. I'm the reason Mrs. Chen was almost kidnapped. What happens when he goes after someone else? What happens when he hurts someone I care about?" Diana was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that changed everything. "Sir, we found something in our investigation. Something we didn't want to tell you until we were sure." I looked at her. "What is it?" "Marco has a list of everyone you've ever helped in this neighborhood. Every person you've driven your tractor for. Every kid you've taught. Every neighbor you've befriended. He plans to hurt them. All of them. One by one." My blood ran cold. "When?" I asked. "Soon. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. We don't know for sure." I thought about all the people on that list. The Martinez family, Tommy Wilson, Mrs. Rodriguez, All the wonderful people who had made my retirement years meaningful and happy. I couldn't let Marco hurt them. I wouldn't let him. I stood up slowly, my old bones creaking, my old heart pounding. Diana, I need you to do something for me. Anything, sir. I need you to get a message to Marco Castellano. Tell him I want to meet. Just him and me, face to face. No FBI, no guns, just two old men settling a score. Diana's eyes went wide. Sir, that's suicide. No, I said. That's the only way to end this. Marco doesn't want to hurt these people. He wants to hurt me, so let him try. Let him come for me directly instead of hiding behind his thugs. I can't let you do that. You can't stop me, Diana. I'm not an agent anymore. I'm just a retired old man with a tractor. But I'm also the only one who can end this. Marco wants revenge? Fine, let him have it. But he has to earn it. He has to face me himself. Diana stared at me for a long time. I could see the battle happening inside her head. Her training told her to refuse. Her orders told her to protect me. But she also knew me. She knew that once I made up my mind, nothing could change it. Finally, she nodded. I'll get him the message. But sir, please be careful. I'm always careful, I said with a small smile. Ask any of the criminals I put away. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, waiting for a response. The house was quiet. The neighborhood was quiet. Even the crickets outside seemed to be holding their breath. My phone buzzed at exactly midnight. The message was simple. Tomorrow, noon, your driveway. Come alone. I typed back, I'll be there. Then I put down my phone and looked at the photo of Margaret on the wall. She was smiling in that photo, her eyes full of love and joy. Well, my love, I whispered to her picture. Tomorrow I face a monster. But don't worry, I've faced monsters before, and I always win. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I took a long shower, put on my best clothes, and ate a good breakfast. Then I walked outside to my tractor and sat down on the worn leather seat. I ran my hands over the steering wheel, feeling the grooves worn smooth by my father's hands and mine. 70 years of history in this machine. 70 years of memories. Dad, I said softly, if you're watching, I could use some of your strength today. At 11:45, a long black limousine turned onto my street. It drove slowly, deliberately, like a shark moving through water. It stopped in front of my house. The back door opened, and Marco Castellano stepped out. He looked like his father. Same dark eyes, same cold smile, same air of dangerous confidence. Agent Patterson, he said, walking toward me. At last we meet. I stood up from my tractor seat, my old knees protesting. It's just Mr. Patterson now, I said. I've been retired for 20 years. You destroyed my family. Your father destroyed himself. I just helped justice along. Marco laughed, but there was no humor in it. Justice? You call it justice? I call it robbery. You stole 30 years from my father. 30 years he could have spent with me. 30 years of birthdays, holidays, and memories. All gone because of you. Your father ordered the deaths of innocent people, Marco. 40 people that we know of. Probably more. He didn't deserve birthdays and holidays. He deserved exactly what he got. Marco's face twisted with rage. For a moment, I thought he might attack me, right there in my own driveway, but he controlled himself. Just barely. I could kill you right now, he said quietly. I have men with guns pointed at this street from 6 different locations. One word from me, and you're dead. Then do it, I said calmly. But know this, Marco. If you kill me, you don't get what you really want. Killing me is too quick. Too easy. You said it yourself. You want me to suffer? Well, here I am. Make me suffer. But leave my neighbors alone. This is between you and me. Marco studied me for a long moment. I could see him calculating, planning, deciding. You're right, he finally said. Killing you would be too easy. I have something else in mind. Something much more painful. He pulled out a folder from his jacket. The same kind of folder Diana had shown me days ago. I've done my research on you, Patterson. I know everything. Your wife died 3 years ago. Your children live far away, and rarely visit. You have no one left except your neighbors and that ridiculous tractor. He opened the folder and showed me what was inside. Photos of my children, my grandchildren, their homes, their workplaces, their schools. Your neighbors are nothing to me, Marco said. But your family? Now that's interesting. How would you like it if something happened to your grandson? He's 6 years old, right? Plays soccer on Saturdays? Cute kid. My heart stopped. You leave them alone, I said, my voice shaking for the first time. They have nothing to do with this. Neither did I, 30 years ago. But you still took my father from me. This was it. The moment I had feared. Marco wasn't going to hurt me or my neighbors. He was going to hurt my family. My children. My grandchildren. The people I loved most in the world. I had walked right into his trap, but then something unexpected happened. From behind Marco's limousine, a small figure appeared. A child, walking slowly, deliberately, toward us. It was Tommy Wilson, the 14-year-old boy I had been teaching about tractors and engines all year. "Mr. Patterson," Tommy called out. "Are you okay?" Marco spun around, surprised. "Who is this kid?" Tommy kept walking closer. Behind him, I saw other figures emerging from their houses. Mrs. Chen, still shaky from yesterday but standing tall. The Martinez family, all 5 of them, holding hands. Mrs. Rodriguez, with her walker. More neighbors, dozens of them, all walking toward my driveway. "Tommy, go home," I said urgently. "All of you, go home. This isn't safe." But they kept coming. They surrounded us, forming a circle around Marco, his limousine, and me. Mr. Martinez stepped forward. "We know who you are," he said to Marco. "The FBI told us everything. We know you came here to hurt Mr. Patterson. We know you tried to kidnap Mrs. Chen." Marco looked around at the growing crowd, his face showing something I had never expected to see. Uncertainty. "This doesn't concern you people," Marco said. "Walk away now, and no one gets hurt." "No," said Mrs. Chen, her voice stronger than I had ever heard it. "Mr. Patterson is our friend. He's helped every single person here. When my tree fell, he was there. When the Martinezes needed help moving, he was there. When Tommy wanted to learn, he was there. He never asked for anything in return. He just helped because that's who he is." Tommy stepped even closer. "You think you're tough because you have money and guns and men hiding everywhere? You're not tough. You're a coward. Mr. Patterson is tougher than you'll ever be. He's the bravest person I know." Marco looked at me, then at the crowd, then back at me. "Call off your people, Patterson. This is between us." "They're not my people," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "They're my neighbors, my friends, and apparently, they don't take kindly to bullies." Diana and her agents appeared then, stepping out from behind houses and cars where they had been hiding. Dozens of them, all with weapons drawn, all pointed at Marco and his men. "Marco Castellano," Diana announced loudly. "You're under arrest for attempted kidnapping, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 50 other charges we've been building for years. Get down on the ground, now." Marco didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on mine. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You might have won today, but I have resources you can't imagine. I'll get out, and when I do, I'll finish what I started." "No," I said, stepping closer to him. "You won't. Because I'm going to testify against you, just like I testified against your father, and when I'm done, you'll spend the rest of your life in the same prison cell where he died. That's justice, Marco, real justice." For a moment, I thought Marco might try to run or fight. But then he looked around at the FBI agents, at my neighbors, at the wall of people standing between him and his revenge. He got down on his knees. Diana moved forward with handcuffs. As she secured Marco's hands behind his back, he looked up at me one last time. "How did you do it?" he asked. "How did you turn a whole neighborhood against me?" I smiled. It was the first real smile I had felt in weeks. "I didn't do anything, Marco. I just treated people with kindness. I helped them when they needed help. I listened when they needed to talk. I was there for them, day after day, year after year. That's all. Kindness and empathy. Simple things your family never understood." They loaded Marco into an FBI vehicle and drove away. His limousine was impounded. His hidden gunmen were rounded up one by one. By sundown, Maple Ridge Estates was safe again. That evening, my neighbors threw a party in my honor. Nothing fancy, just burgers and hot dogs in the Martinez family's backyard. Kids ran around playing while adults sat in lawn chairs, talking and laughing. Mrs. Chen brought me a plate of her famous spring rolls. "Thank you, Mr. Patterson," she said softly, "for saving my life." "Thank you," I replied, "for standing up today. That took real courage." Tommy sat next to me, his eyes wide with excitement. "Mr. Patterson, will you teach me more about tractors tomorrow?" "Tomorrow and every day after that," I said. "As long as these old bones hold up." Diana stopped by before leaving town. "Sir, Marco's going away for a long time, probably the rest of his life. But, I want you to know something. What you did today, standing up to him like that, inspiring your whole neighborhood to stand with you, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen." "I didn't inspire them," I said. "They inspired me." Diana hugged me goodbye, something she had never done in all the years I knew her. "Take care of yourself, Agent Patterson." "It's just Harry now," I said with a smile. "Just Harry." After everyone went home, I sat on my porch in the darkness, looking at my old red tractor in the driveway. Margaret's star, the bright one she always said was watching over us, twinkled in the night sky. "We did it, my love," I whispered. We're safe. Everyone's safe. A warm breeze blew across my face, and for just a moment, I could swear I smelled her perfume. The next morning, I woke up to a knock on my door. It was Derek, the HOA enforcement officer who had tried to take my tractor just weeks ago. He looked different somehow, smaller, humbler. Mr. Patterson, he said, staring at his shoes. I owe you an apology. I didn't know who Victor really was. I didn't know about any of it. I was just following orders. And that's no excuse. I'm sorry for everything. I looked at this man who had caused me so much trouble. I could have been angry. I could have told him to leave and never come back, but that's not who I am. Derek, I said, everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is learning from them. Would you like some coffee? His head snapped up, surprise written all over his face. Really? After everything I did? Life's too short for grudges, I said, opening my door wider. Besides, I make pretty good coffee. My wife taught me. Derek came inside. We talked for hours. It turned out he wasn't a bad guy, just a lost one. He had been looking for purpose, for belonging, and Victor had given him that, even if it was built on lies. By the time he left, I had convinced him to volunteer at the local community center. Last I heard, he was coaching a youth basketball team and loving every minute of it. The HOA changed after Victor's arrest. New leadership was elected, good people who actually cared about the neighborhood. The ridiculous rules were thrown out. The fines were forgiven, and a new rule was added to the community guidelines. Classic farm equipment is welcome in Maple Ridge Estates, especially red tractors with 70 years of history. I still drive my tractor around the neighborhood on sunny days. Kids still wave and call me Tractor Harry. Neighbors still ask for help with their yards and their problems. Life goes on, the way it always does. Sometimes, late at night, I think about everything that happened. The FBI showing up, the attempted kidnapping, Marco Castellano staring at me with hatred in his eyes. It feels like a dream, like something that happened to someone else. But then I look at my tractor, and I remember my father's hands on the steering wheel, teaching me to drive when I was just a boy. I remember Margaret's smile when I brought it home to Florida. I remember all the people I've helped over the years, all the small kindnesses that added up to something bigger than I ever imagined. The HOA cops tried to seize my tractor. They froze when I showed them my FBI badge. But that's not the real story. The real story is about what happened after. It's about neighbors becoming heroes. It's about kindness, defeating hatred. It's about an old man learning that he still had something to give, even at 82 years old. My father used to say that a tractor isn't just a machine, it's a promise to work hard, to help others, and to leave the world a little better than you found it. I think I've kept that promise, and I plan to keep it for whatever years I have left.